The janitor who knew too much. Jake Thomas was just a janitor. He wore a gray uniform, carried a cleaning bot, and moved quietly through the giant spaceship called Titan's Edge. Nobody talked to him. Nobody cared. To most of the crew, he was invisible, and Jake liked it that way. He had worked on the ship for 4 years. Every day he cleaned the same metal halls, emptied the waste units, and fixed broken lights. He listened to the gossip of soldiers, scientists, and officers, but they never noticed him. They never thought a janitor mattered. Until one night, everything changed. It was a slow night shift. Most of the crew were asleep or on break. Jake was cleaning near Sector 7, a restricted area. He wasn't supposed to be there, but someone had spilled reactor gel and he had to clean it before it corroded the floor. As he scrubbed, he heard voices. 2 officers were standing near a control panel, speaking in low, serious tones. "The alliance with the Vrexians is falling apart," one said. "Command doesn't care," the other replied. "They want war. Too much money in it." Jake stopped scrubbing. War? He looked around. The hallway was dark. They hadn't seen him. He slowly backed away, but his cleaning bot made a small beep. The officers turned suddenly. "Who's there?" Jake didn't wait. He turned and ran down the hallway, heart pounding. He hid behind a cargo crate, holding his breath. Footsteps echoed nearby. Then silence. After a few minutes, he crept out and returned to his quarters. He tried to record what he had heard on his datapad, but the security system auto-deleted the file. He knew then. This was big. Too big, and someone didn't want the truth to come out. The next day, Jake acted normal. He cleaned the med bay, polished the captain's corridor, and kept his head down. But something felt wrong. People were watching him more than usual, and the officers who spoke last night, he didn't see them anywhere. Later that evening, an alert sounded. A ship was docking, unauthorized. Jake rushed to a window. A sleek, black alien ship was connecting to Titan's Edge. Red lights flashed. Security teams moved in. But when the airlock opened, the guards froze. 2 tall alien figures stepped out. Their skin was silver blue, their eyes glowing. They wore flowing robes, not armor. Their heads were crowned with strange golden shapes. They were queens. Alien queens. But no one stopped them. The guards simply moved aside. It was like they were expected. Jake watched from the shadows. He had never seen these aliens before. They walked slowly through the hallway, scanning everything. Then, one of them stopped. She turned her head and looked directly at him. Jake felt cold. His hands shook. He stepped back, but her voice rang in his mind, not spoken, but felt. "Do not be afraid." His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, a voice behind him shouted, "Hey, that's him!" A security officer raised his weapon. Jake didn't even have time to move. But the alien queens did. In one swift motion, the taller queen raised her hand. The officer screamed as his body lifted off the ground, and then dropped, lifeless. The hallway went silent. The other crew members backed away, terrified. The queens moved forward. They stood in front of Jake now. He looked up at them, heart racing. The shorter queen spoke in soft, broken English. "You, loyal, you saw truth. Humans betray their own." Jake couldn't believe it. Why would alien queens care about a janitor? "Come," the queen said. "You are important." Before he could answer, everything around him turned white. He passed out. When he woke up, he was no longer on Titan's Edge. He lay on a soft bed in a round, glowing room. Strange symbols floated in the air, and 2 alien guards stood outside the door, watching but not threatening. He sat up slowly. Was he a prisoner or a guest? Then the taller queen entered. She smiled, not in a kind way, but in a knowing way. "We have watched you," she said. "You were ignored, but not useless. Your loyalty has value." Jake blinked. He had only been a janitor, nothing more, Or maybe something more. 2 queens, 1 janitor. Jake opened his eyes slowly. The room was soft and glowing, like the inside of a living organism. It wasn't cold, but he shivered anyway. Everything felt too quiet. He sat up. His janitor uniform was still on, but his cleaning bot was gone. Alien symbols floated above the walls, shifting like water. 2 tall, armored alien guards stood at the door. They didn't speak. They didn't blink. "Where am I?" Jake whispered. A soft hum filled the room. The door slid open, and the taller of the 2 alien queens entered. Her presence was powerful, like a storm hidden behind calm eyes. Her skin shimmered silver blue, and her long fingers were covered in glowing rings. When she looked at Jake, he felt like she could read every memory in his mind. "You are safe," she said. Her voice was deep, smooth, and not human. It echoed in Jake's head, as if it came from both outside and inside him. "Safe?" Jake stood up slowly. "You killed a man." The queen tilted her head. He raised weapon, not first to die, not last. Jake looked down. She wasn't wrong. People died all the time, but not for him, not for a janitor. Then the second queen entered. She was shorter, with sharper features. Her eyes burned like stars, and her voice was colder. "You saw betrayal," she said. "You heard what they plan. Your leaders sell peace for war." Jake nodded slowly. "I heard 2 officers talking. They said something about a fake alliance." The taller queen sat across from him. "They plan war with us, but not for defense, for power, for control." Jake's mind raced. He remembered how many times he cleaned the strategy rooms, the secret meeting halls. He always thought he was just background noise. But maybe he had seen more than he realized. "But why me?" he asked. "I'm just a janitor." The queen leaned forward. "No. You are invisible to them. Not to us. You listen. You remember. You ask nothing. You expect nothing. You are loyal. And loyalty is rare." Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the ship. Red light flashed once, then stopped. The guards looked at the queens. They said nothing, but tension filled the air. "They found you," the second queen said. "Your leaders want you dead. You are a loose end." Jake's legs went weak. "So what now, you protect me?" The taller queen stood. "No. We offer you choice." "Choice?" he repeated. A table rose from the floor between them. On it was a small black cube, a strange silver chip, and a curved alien weapon. "The cube contains recordings," the queen said. "Proof of the human command's betrayal. Voices, plans. The chip allows you to walk unseen, cloaked from scanners. And the weapon is last resort. You want me to spy for you?" "No," she said. "We want you to see the truth, and choose your side." Jake looked at the items. They pulsed softly as if alive. "But if I'm caught again," the colder queen spoke sharply, "you will not be caught, or you will be killed." Jake laughed nervously. Comforting, but deep inside he felt something shift. For years, he was ignored. Now, 2 alien queens had risked their lives to pull him out of the shadows. He reached out and picked up the chip. "I'll do it. Not for you. For the truth." The taller queen nodded. "Then we begin." Back on Titan's edge, chaos was growing. Captain Ramos paced the bridge. "How did the janitor vanish from the brig?" A soldier replied, "Sir, he wasn't in the system. No record he was ever here." Ramos slammed his fist. "They took him. Those aliens. They know." Meanwhile, Jake returned silently to the ship, cloaked, hidden, invisible. He moved through the dark maintenance tunnels he had cleaned 1,000 times. No one noticed. No one ever did. He planted the cube near the ship's broadcast core. Once activated, it would send the truth across every Allied channel. But before he could finish, he heard voices. Familiar ones. If we find that janitor, we kill him. Quietly. No record. Jake froze. It was one of the same officers he heard that first night. You think the Queens made contact? I think they already have him. And if the public sees those files, command falls apart. Jake's hands shook. The cube was armed. Just one tap, and it would all go public. But then, he hesitated. If he did this, he would be hunted. Forever. No going back. No safe home. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A shadow moved. A whisper echoed through his mind. Not yet. Wait. Watch. It was her voice. The Queen's. She was guiding him. The officers passed. Jake waited, heart pounding. Then he slipped deeper into the tunnels. That night, Jake didn't sleep. He sat alone in a forgotten storage bay, listening to the sound of the engines, staring at the strange alien weapon in his hand. He was no longer just a janitor. He was a key, a danger, and for the first time in his life, someone had killed to protect him. The chosen one? Or a pawn? The stars outside Titan's edge didn't twinkle anymore. The ship was moving through a dead zone. No satellites, no signals, no sound. The perfect place to make someone disappear. Deep in a forgotten maintenance shaft, Jake sat alone. His cloak device blinked softly on his wrist. The alien chip worked. No scanner could see him. No camera, no thermal reading. He didn't exist. But in the silence, something kept echoing in his mind. You are important. Important for what? Truth? War? Survival? He stared at the alien weapon in his lap. It felt too heavy for him. He had never fired a gun in his life. His hands were made for pushing brooms, not pulling triggers. But now, they were shaking for another reason. He wasn't sure who he was working for anymore. 3 days ago, the alien Queens had told him everything. Or so they said. They had shown him recordings. Human generals making secret deals, selling alien worlds for minerals, sacrificing peaceful colonies for strategic reasons. Jake had heard whispers of it in the hallways before. But seeing it, hearing the greed in their voices, it made him sick. You are not like them, Queen Valira had said, her silver eyes glowing in the dark. She had taken a strange interest in Jake. She called him Loyal One. She walked beside him during his training. She even touched his hand once, a soft, strange moment that made his heart race. But Queen Zalari, the colder one, had warned him. Queens do not love, they choose. And now Jake wasn't sure if he had been chosen, or simply used. Suddenly his earpiece buzzed. A static-filled voice whispered, "They found the cube." His eyes widened. He tapped his wrist to respond. "Who is this?" "Someone who doesn't want to die," the voice replied. "You've started a war, janitor." Click. Silence. Jake stood up. If the cube was found, then the truth hadn't gone out. His one mission failed, and worse. They knew he was back. At that same moment, far across the ship, Queen Valira stared into a glowing star map. Her hands moved slowly over the image of the galaxy. "He's afraid," said Queen Zalari, standing beside her. "He should be," Valira replied. "He was never trained for war, only survival." "Then why choose him?" Zalari hissed. "He is weak." Valira's eyes narrowed. "Because weakness hides strength. The humans overlooked him. They all did. And that makes him perfect. For what? For something we can't do ourselves." Meanwhile, Jake was on the move. He wore a stolen officer's jacket over his janitor uniform. It helped him blend in when needed. But the moment someone looked closely, he was done. He slipped into the ship's lower decks, a place even most engineers avoided. Hot steam hissed from broken pipes. The lights flickered. It smelled like rust and oil and secrets. He reached the server core, where the backup recording from the alien cube might still exist. but the door was guarded. 2 soldiers stood in silence, weapons ready. Jake thought fast. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a cleaning pass. It was old, worn, but still scannable. "Orders from Deck 4, he said, lowering his voice. "System contamination. Command wants it scrubbed." The soldiers looked at each other. One laughed. "You're the cleanup guy they said escaped." Jake froze. The soldier raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the lights went out. A loud hum filled the hallway. The soldiers screamed as something large and invisible slammed them into the wall. Then, silence. Jake stood frozen, heart pounding. A glowing figure appeared, tall, armored, cloaked in dark light. Not a queen. Something else. "You are lucky," it said in a voice like metal scraping against stone. Jake stepped back. "Who are you?" "We are Watchers. Old allies of the Queen's, we guard the ones they choose." "Why are you helping me?" "Because if you die, the Queens die with you." And then it vanished. Inside the server room, Jake found it. A hidden copy of the cube data. It glowed, pulsing like a heartbeat. He downloaded it into his wrist chip and backed away, but suddenly the screen in front of him blinked on. Captain Ramos appeared. "Hello, Jake." Jake's mouth went dry. "You think you're clever," the captain continued. "We've been watching you since day one." "Then why didn't you stop me?" Jake asked. Ramos smiled. "Because, sometimes, it's better to let a rat run and see where it nests." Jake's blood turned cold. "You were never invisible," Ramos said. "You were bait." The screen cut off. Then everything exploded. When Jake woke up, he was coughing smoke. The server room was on fire. Alarms blared. Crew members were shouting outside. He stumbled to his feet, barely able to see. His arm was bleeding. His cloak chip was cracked. He had only one chance left. He pressed the emergency beacon the Queens had given him. A small glass ring on his finger. "Please," he whispered. "I don't know who to trust anymore." But somewhere, through the darkness, a soft voice replied inside his mind. "Trust no one, not even us. But do not stop." Escape from Titan's edge, the fire was everywhere. Flames crawled up the walls of the server room, licking the ceiling like hungry fingers. Alarms screamed through the corridors. But Jake wasn't running. He was crawling. Smoke filled his lungs. His cloak chip was broken. His arm was cut open. The backup data chip was still clutched in his hand, the only evidence left. If he lost it, the truth died with him. The truth, and maybe the Queen's. His Queen's. 20 minutes earlier, everything was quiet. The server room had gone dark after Captain Ramos's message. Then a blast. Planted, planned, personal. Jake wasn't supposed to escape. The trap wasn't just about catching him. It was about removing him from the board completely. Someone had known he'd find the server. Someone had planned for it, and the moment he realized it, it was too late. Now crawling through the emergency duct, Jake could barely think. Blood dripped from his chin. Every breath felt like a knife in his chest. And still, he clutched the chip. Not for glory, not for revenge, but because someone had to tell the truth. And right now, no one else would. In another part of the ship, Queen Valira stood in a shimmering chamber, her hands locked into a circle of floating runes. Around her, the ship's air shimmered with psychic tension. She was connected to Jake's beacon. She saw through his eyes, felt his pain, heard his heartbeat. Too slow, too weak. "He's failing," said Queen Zalari, standing near the entrance. "He's resisting," Valira replied. "That makes him stronger than you think, or more dangerous." Meanwhile, Jake reached a maintenance access tunnel. He had crawled through it hundreds of times when cleaning, back when no one noticed him, back when he was just a janitor. He pulled himself into the tight metal shaft, closed the hatch behind him, and collapsed in the dark. He lay there shaking, coughing, bleeding, laughing. "This is insane," he muttered. "What am I even doing?" His voice echoed in the metal space. But then, something answered. Not words. Not sound. A presence. Something was already in the tunnel with him. He turned slowly. Behind him, in the dark, a pair of glowing yellow eyes. "You're not one of them," a deep voice said. Jake's heart stopped. "What are you?" The figure moved forward, half shadow, half light, tall, armored, with a human shape, but not human. "I'm what they used to be," the voice said, "before the queens. Before the peace." "You worked for them?" "I fought for them," the figure said. "And they threw me away when I asked too many questions." Jake's hand moved toward the broken weapon at his belt. "Don't," the figure warned. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be ash." Jake narrowed his eyes. "Then what do you want? To see if you're real, if you're just another puppet, or if you're something more?" He tossed a small black sphere. To Jake, a smoke drone, standard military issue. "You're going to need that," the figure said. "The entire security division is after you now. Not just the captain, not just command. They want to erase your name, your face, your entire existence. And the queens? They'll survive. They always do. You probably won't." The figure disappeared into the smoke. Like a ghost, Jake didn't wait. He activated the drone and ran. He slipped past patrols, ducked under sensors, used every trick he had learned from years of moving unseen, years of being nobody. But that was the thing about being invisible. It only worked when no one was looking. Now everyone was looking. In the command deck, Captain Ramos watched the ship's map. Seal decks 5 through 9. Flood maintenance tunnels with gas. "I want his corpse." "Sir," a tech said, "there's something else. Alien movement detected in storage bay Delta 4. It's cloaked." Ramos's face darkened. "They're protecting him." "Of course they are." He turned to his second in command. "Prepare the Omega Protocol." The officer blinked. "Sir, that will do it." Back in the tunnels, Jake reached a hidden elevator shaft, the one only maintenance crew knew about. His keycard, once ignored, beeped green. The door opened. Inside stood Queen Valira. She looked like a goddess in the flickering lights, her silver blue skin glowing, her eyes unreadable. Jake stumbled in. "You came," he said. "You called," she replied. "And they are coming." The elevator dropped. Fast. "Why me?" Jake asked. "Why not some soldier or spy?" She touched his temple gently. "Because you are loyal to truth. Not to flag, not to queen, not to yourself. That makes you rare. That makes you dangerous." Jake looked down. "Am I your pawn?" Valira leaned close. "No, you are our knife." As the elevator reached the lower bay, explosions shook the walls. The Omega Protocol had started. Titan's Edge was going to self-purge its lowest decks, erase any evidence of betrayal. "We have 3 minutes," Valira said. "You must leave. Now." "What about you?" Jake asked. "Queens do not run," she said, but Jake grabbed her arm. "Then we die together. For the first time." She smiled. A small alien shuttle waited in the docking bay. Its engines were already glowing. Jake and Valira ran through the chaos. Gunfire echoed behind them. Sirens wailed. As the ramp lifted and the shuttle shot into space, the bottom of Titan's Edge exploded, a fireball of fury hiding the truth once again. Jake watched the fire fade behind them. The ship he cleaned for years was now trying to kill him. He turned to Valira. "What now?" She looked at the stars. "Now, we stop hiding. Now, we fight." The Queen's secret, the stars outside were silent again. But they weren't peaceful. They were watching. From the window of the alien shuttle, Jake stared at the black void. His heart still beat too fast. The fire, the explosions, the chase. They were over for now. But the weight inside his chest hadn't lifted. Queen Valira sat across from him, calm as ever. Her posture was perfect, her breathing slow, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just helped him escape a warship about to erase his existence. But her eyes, silver and ancient, kept flicking to the same point in the stars. And Jake noticed it. She was waiting for something, or someone. The shuttle moved through a hidden route, a trail of gravity holes and signal dead zones only the queens knew. Zilari, the second queen, wasn't with them. She had stayed behind to cover their escape. Will she survive? Jake asked. Valira didn't answer right away. She will fight, she finally said. But she does not expect to survive. She has made her choice. And what about me? Jake asked. Did I choose this? Or did you choose it for me? Again, silence. Then she stood and walked to him. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, almost human. You don't know what loyalty means. Not yet. 3 hours later, the shuttle landed on a hidden moon called Sarah 9, a place erased from most human maps. Once a research colony, now a ghost base. The structures were silent and dark. Everything was covered in layers of dust and memories. What is this place? Jake asked. Valira's voice echoed strangely as she spoke. Where the truth began and where it ended. Inside a small room deep beneath the moon's surface, she showed him a recording, not a war plan, not a betrayal, but a face. A young man. Human. Brown skin. Sharp eyes. A warm smile. He stood beside Queen Valira, his hand in hers. Who is that? Jake asked. He was the first, she said. The first human we trusted. What happened to him? He died for choosing peace. Jake leaned closer. How? Valira's voice changed. He chose us over his people, just like you are now. But unlike you, he wanted to change both sides. He believed humans could rise above greed, and we could rise above control. Jake looked at her carefully. You loved him. She didn't blink. We don't feel love as you do, but we bond, and our bonds are unbreakable. So why are you showing me this? Jake asked. Because you're walking the same path, she replied, and you should know where it ends. They stayed on Sarah 9 for 2 days. In that time, Jake saw a different side of Valira. She didn't give commands. She didn't lecture. She asked questions about his childhood, about Earth, about why he never left the janitor job, even when he had chances. I was invisible, he told her. And being invisible felt safe. You're not invisible anymore, she said. I know, he whispered. And now everyone wants me dead. On the second night, a storm of static shook. The moon's surface, comms were jammed, scanners went blind. Valira disappeared for hours, leaving Jake alone in the base. He wandered through old labs and ruined hallways until he found a locked room with his name on it, his human name, printed in alien script. He opened it. Inside, a wall of data. Thousands of files, images, scans, timelines, maps of his cleaning routes on Titan's Edge, lists of every conversation he ever had near classified areas, heat maps of where he stood for how long, even audio recordings, whispers he didn't remember. Speaking. He stumbled back dizzy. This wasn't just observation, this was surveillance. Deep, long-term. He hadn't been chosen by chance. The queens had been watching him for years. He fell to his knees. I was never just a janitor to you, he muttered. No, said a voice behind him. He turned. Valira stood there, not smiling. You were a test. Jake stood slowly. His face was pale, his voice hollow. A test for what? For loyalty, she said. For resistance to corruption. For survival under pressure. We needed someone no one would suspect, someone who could move unseen. So you used me. We prepared you, she said. Your silence, your invisibility. It was a shield. Now it's a sword. He backed away. You didn't save me. You created me. We did both, she replied. And now, you are the only human we trust. Before he could respond, an explosion rocked the ground. Alarms shrieked through the base. A transmission broke through the static. Queen Zilari's First on weak and fading, they found the base. They're coming. I bought you time. Then nothing. Valira's eyes narrowed. They will erase this moon, she said. They will burn the truth. What do we do? Jake asked. We run, she said. And then, we strike. As they rushed to the hangar, Jake looked back one last time. He didn't know who to trust anymore. Not humans, not the queens, not even himself. But one thing was clear. They had made him, and now he would decide what he became. War for the truth space was no longer silent. Ships moved like shadows across the stars, slow, heavy, deadly. The war had begun, and somewhere in the middle of it all, floating in a stolen alien stealth craft, was a man who used to clean floors. Jake Thomas, the janitor no one noticed, was now the one everyone was hunting. What are we flying into? Jake asked. Queen Valira stood at the control panel. Her silver-blue skin reflected the glow of red warning lights. Chaos, she said. But inside that chaos, opportunity. He watched the hologram. 3 human war fleets had surrounded an alien diplomatic convoy. They claimed the queens were carrying weapons of mass destruction. They weren't, but lies were more powerful than weapons now. They'll fire on us the second we break stealth, Jake said. Not if you speak first, Valira replied. Me? They don't listen to me. They shoot at me. She looked at him. Then make them listen. 10 hours earlier, Jake had stood in front of a hidden resistance council, a mix of humans and aliens who believed in peace. Most of them had never heard of him. A few knew his face from wanted posters. None trusted him. You want us to follow a janitor? A human ex-captain had scoffed. He's not a leader. He's a liability. But Jake didn't back down. You followed your leaders into lies, he said. And they led you to the edge of extinction. Maybe it's time you followed someone with nothing left to lose, that had shut them up, and it gave him what he needed, a broadcast beacon strong enough to reach both fleets. Now, that beacon sat on the dashboard of their stealth ship. The moment he activated it, he'd be seen by every human warship. He'd have 60 seconds before they locked weapons on him. Valira placed a hand on his shoulder. This is your war now, Jake, not ours. He nodded, then looked at the beacon. Guess it's time to clean up the galaxy. The moment he activated the beacon, every screen across the battlefield lit up. His face appeared, scarred, tired, real. My name is Jake Thomas. I used to be a janitor on Titan's Edge. No rank, no title, just the truth. I was invisible to the people who ran your ships, who gave your orders. But I heard things. I saw things. I know what's really happening. He uploaded the files, the recordings, the maps, the betrayal logs. He showed the secret meetings between human generals and corrupt corporations, the plans to sacrifice colonies for profit, the orders to silence anyone who got too close to the truth. They lied to you, Jake said. They used you. They're starting a war not to protect humanity, but to own it. Some officers ignored the transmission. Others hesitated. A few shut off their weapons, but not all. Multiple ships still targeting us, Valira warned. Not enough changed. Jake gritted his teeth. Then we make them choose. He activated the second file, footage of Queen Zalari's final stand. She had held back enemy forces with nothing but her mind and a broken blade. She had died protecting Jake's exit. The video ended with her last words. Let truth be louder than war. On board the human flagship, Captain Ramos stared at the screen, his face twisted in rage. Cut his signal. Launch all fighters. I want him dead. But something happened. 3 ships didn't move. Then 6. Then a dozen. Commander? Ramos shouted. They're ignoring orders, sir. They're listening to him. Ramos drew his weapon, but before he could act, his own crew turned on him. Meanwhile, Jake and Valira pushed deeper into the battlefield. They flew through debris, missiles, and blinding flashes of war. Their small ship shook with each shockwave. A voice came through the comms. Janitor, this is Commander Elise from the 3rd Fleet. We're standing down. You bought us a minute, don't waste it. Jake exhaled. That's all we need. Inside the ship, Valira reached into her armor and handed Jake a sphere. Warm, glowing. Alive, what is this? He asked. The crown memory, the history of our kind, only given to those who earn it. Why me? Because you didn't fight to win. You fought to be heard? She paused. And because I trust you more than my own blood? For a queen, that was the closest thing to love. But peace never comes easy. A rogue ship, a private mercenary vessel paid by the human corporations, broke through the ceasefire. Its weapons locked on Jake's ship. We don't have time to run, Valira said. Jake stared at the screen. Then he smiled. Then we clean this mess ourselves. He rerouted all power to the stealth engine, not to hide, but to ram. Brace, he shouted. The ship exploded through the rogue vessel like a comet, tearing it apart. Fire bloomed behind them, but the blast wave pushed them toward the Third Fleet. They crash-landed inside the docking bay of the Loyalist ship. Jake stumbled out, carrying the crown memory sphere. Behind him, Valira walked like a goddess of war. By the end of the day, 57 human ships had stood down. 3 alien empires signed a temporary ceasefire. The war wasn't over, but it had paused. Because one man told the truth. Later, alone in the med bay, Jake looked at his reflection. He still wore his janitor uniform. It was burned and torn, but it still fit. Someone knocked on the door. A young pilot saluted him. Sir, she said, the new Alliance fleet wants you on the council. Jake stared at her. I clean trash, he said. I'm not a leader. You're the reason we're still alive, she replied. And that's enough. Outside, the stars moved again, not in silence, but in hope. Loyalty above all, the war had paused, but the galaxy was still holding its breath. All across human space, fleets floated in silence. Some stood down. Some still watched with fingers on triggers. Peace was fragile. Too fragile. One spark could burn it all again. But deep inside the newly formed Alliance station, orbiting neutral space, a man once known as just a janitor stood at the edge of a choice that could shape the future of 2 civilizations. Jake Thomas had never wanted power, but now power wanted him. In a polished chamber of glass and gravity, the new High Council had gathered, leaders from the Loyalist human fleet, alien envoys, rogue captains, scientists, rebels, even defected spies. They were not friends, but they had one thing in common. They had all heard the truth, and they had all survived the lie. Now they looked to Jake. Queen Valira stood beside him, her gaze calm but unreadable. She had been quieter since the last battle, more distant. Something was shifting in her. They want to name you the first peacekeeper, she said. A symbol of balance. I'm not a symbol, Jake replied. I'm still wearing burned boots from the engine room. Symbols are never clean, she said, but they shine even in ash. He looked around the room. So many faces. Some believed in him, others feared him, and some still wanted him dead. What if I say no? He asked. Valira's voice dropped low. Then the Alliance breaks. Factions fall apart. War returns, and your story ends where it began, in silence. But that wasn't what haunted Jake. What haunted him was the message, a private file hidden deep in the alien crown memory sphere, encrypted, sealed, old. He had found it the night before, and it had her voice, Queen Zellery. She had recorded it long before she died, back when she and Valira first discovered Jake. In the message, she spoke not of trust, but of strategy. If the human asset proves stable, he will be our final weapon. We do not need loyalty. We need obedience dressed as free will. Jake had stared at the screen, heart sinking. Was everything a game? That morning, he requested a private meeting with Valira. They met on the outer deck of the station, a platform facing the stars, away from cameras and ears. You lied to me, Jake said. Zellery planned this from the start. I wasn't chosen for who I am. I was designed, tested, shaped. Valira didn't deny it. Yes, she said softly. Why didn't you tell me? Because the truth before time is poison, she answered. You needed to believe your choices were your own. Otherwise, you would never make them. So what am I to you now? Jake asked. A tool? A puppet with a heart? Valira stepped closer. You were the plan, Jake, but then you became something more. Prove it. She held out the crown memory sphere. Wipe it, she said. You know how. One pulse will erase every trace of our knowledge, our history, our war. It will destroy my species' legacy. Jake stared at it. And if I do, we disappear. The alliance collapses. Humanity returns to war. You return to being nothing. And if I don't, then you must become the voice of both sides, the one who carries our burden. Forever. He took the sphere in his hands. It was warm, alive, glowing. He looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see a queen. He saw someone who had given everything, except one thing. Control. In the council chamber, silence fell as Jake walked in. He placed the sphere on the center pedestal. Every eye followed his hand. He looked around the room. You want a hero? He said. I'm not that. He glanced. At the humans, you want someone to blame. I'm not that either. He turned to the aliens. You want a symbol, but I'm just a man who saw the floor and cleaned it. Over and over. A long pause. I'm not here to lead. I'm here to remind you that power unchecked turns peace into poison, and loyalty without truth becomes slavery. He activated the beacon again, a new signal broadcast across the alliance, not secrets, not betrayals, but his voice, a pledge. Truth first, then peace and loyalty. Only to what's right. After the vote, they gave him a title, Keeper of the Bridge, not a commander, not a ruler, but a watchman between worlds. He refused the robes, kept the janitor boots. That night, Valira met him at the airlock. You could have erased us, she said. I thought about it, he replied. Why didn't you? He looked her in the eyes. Because you lied. But you also stood with me when no one else did. So you still trust me? No, he said. But I trust what we can become, she nodded. Not queen to subject, but equals. As the stars stretched before them, Jake stepped onto the new alliance ship, not as a ghost in the shadows, not as a puppet of powers, but as a man who walked through fire and came out not clean, but clear. And as he took his seat, the old voice in his head whispered one last time, You were just a janitor. He smiled. But you cleaned the galaxy.